Unit 3 is vocational profiling, and it is the second stage within the supported employment model. Vocational profiling is about gathering information about the individual. Information about their own personal circumstances, as well as sort of their education, their employment or their work experience, as well as their own work preferences as well. What areas of work that they're interested in. The training module itself outlines that there's a number of stages within the vocational profile. The first stage is really about gathering that information, and it's about the supported employment specialist and the job seeker talking through and finding a little bit more out about each other. And that doesn't always necessarily need to be done in an interview situation. It can be done sort of on a social side of things, going out for a cup of coffee. And it's not only about sort of the communication within that, but it's also about observing how the individual interacts with other people in different types of settings as well. Then following on from that, from gathering information, is really looking at the career strategies and support strategy that the individuals may need. And that's looking about what type of job seeker looking for, and then trying to establish and put in sort of support mechanisms for the individual. The individual may want to work in a specific area, and there may be some training that the individual needs to do first of all, so they will look at that really through the next stage, which is like an action plan. What stage the individual has to get to be able to achieve that. But also the individual may look to do is interested in a particular career, and then really obviously through job sampling or through work experience, that they will be able to get an opportunity to actually carry out the job and see if that's what they like. And once again, the ultimate goal really of the vocational profile is to get a good job match. So really what you're trying to do, which is documented really within the training, is you're trying to gather all this information about the individual and what areas of work that they're interested in, their own experiences, their own skills and abilities, then looking at the types of job preferences that they have and the areas of work they would like to work in, and then having all that information and then taking it to the next stage to look to work with the employer or to be able to identify an employer or a job that suits those. So you have a good job match. It's good for the individual, but also good for the employer as well. One of the areas that they also mentioned really within the training module was also that this whole phase of vocational profiling, as all of the model of supported employment, really should be carried out in a person-centred approach. So once again, that the individual is involved throughout the whole process. And they're in control of the process as well, in saying that who should be involved in helping them to gather the information, where they would like to go and the different types of work experience or their job sampling. So as I said, they're also involved in that. The training material itself outlines a couple of examples of person-centred planning tools, such as MAPS, which is making action plans, and also then they also mentioned PATH, which is planning alternative tomorrows with hope. So these are only two examples of this person-centred planning approach. So how is this information is recorded? And that is obviously one of the key areas as well. And organisations will use a vocational profile document. Now that document isn't just something that you complete and then you leave. With a vocational profile, it's something that you're continually updating. And the vocational profile itself will contain information, as I said earlier, about information about the individual's personal details, about their education and training and employment and their work preferences. And that's why it needs to be updated, because as a person maybe goes and does some work experience or goes and does some training, then it needs, obviously the vocational profile needs updated. So it's not something that you fill in over a couple of days. It's something that you will continue to keep. Don't put it on the shelf and leave it there, or put it in your drawer. You need to keep on sort of monitoring that, and that's obviously mentioned really within the training materials as well. One of the other areas that the training material looks at is really how to conduct a vocational profile. And I think we've mentioned a few bits and pieces about that, in the sense that it doesn't just have to be the traditional sitting across in an office, somebody filling in a form. There's other ways of gathering that information, whether it's going out and having a cup of coffee, going out to different employers, and job sampling or work experience. So it's not just about, as I said, sort of just writing those notes down. It's about going out and observing an individual, seeing how they interact with other people, how they get on with other work colleagues, how they get on with other people really within the supported employment organisation as well. Another area which was highlighted in the training as well, which is very, very important, is about disclosure. And really within the vocational profile, that is an area where the individual will maybe disclose quite a lot of information, maybe about their past or in and around sort of their health condition or their disability, and it's and how it affects them. And it's very, very important that that the individual is aware that this information will not necessarily be shared without their permission to other people's as well. So through this whole process as well, it's very much about, from the supported employment specialist point of view, is about gaining the trust from the individual, because you're obviously going to be dealing with quite a lot of very confidential information about that person, so they must trust you, ensuring that this only information, if required, will be disclosed to anybody else as well. So the vocational profile, as I said, the main aim within this is to establish, to gather the information about the individual, but then to move on to the next stage and making that good job match. So as a supported employment specialist, you will have at the end of the vocational profile a good understanding about the individual, about their aspirations, about their career wishes, and about their skills and abilities. And then you're going out then at that stage to try and identify an employer and a workplace and a job for that individual. I think this has been very, very clearly set out really within this training module. It's got a lot of very good, valuable information. It gives a lot of good examples. Once again, it also contains information about useful tips and things to avoid. So it does contain that information for that supported employment specialist.